Some days are hard, and some days are even harder. We try to leave our work and emotions at the cemetery, but sometimes something happens that follows you home. My daughter Madison had just turned 11, and somehow, no matter how hard I try to hide it, she always knows when something is wrong and I'm hurting. That night, I fell asleep on the sofa. I woke up to a blanket being lifted and cold feet against my legs. Madison had found me. A couple hours later, she sat up and said, "Let's go walk the cemetery." We'd done that before. We'd walk among the headstones and imagine the lives of the people buried there. But this time was different. I could tell that Madison knew that something was off, but she putting off asking me what was wrong. I'm sure it's because she figured it would be the same answer as always, the "I'm fine, honey. It's nothing for you to worry about. Daddy would be okay." This trip to the cemetery felt different. Normally it's casual chatter, but this trip Madison was quiet and reserved. Finally, Madison told me she had a dream that everyone thought that she had died. That at her service she tried to talk and move but couldn't. That she became terrified she would be buried alive when the casket lid closed on her. But that's when she woke up. Madison looked straight at me and asked, "Who did you see? Was it Gracie again? Or was it one of us?" I was absolutely confused. I never spoke to my kids, or even to Andrea about issues such as this. How on earth could she know? Madison must have thought I was ignore her because she asked again, "Who was it?" So for the first time, as we walked through the cemetery with no destination in mind, I told her the truth about what had transpired the day before, but in a way I felt was age-appropriate for an 11-year-old to understand. So as we walked, our hands swinging with our movements, I told her the story. I got a call in the middle of the night to tell me that the casket delivery driver had accidentally dropped the burial vault for the first service, and it was badly damaged. The funeral home was going to just perform a false setup, bring the body back to the funeral home, and then perform the interment once the new vault arrived, but I was already up and offered to make the 2.5-hour drive to pick up a replacement. It was a 5-hour trip, round trip, but the weather was good, so I should have plenty of time to get back and set up for the service. Things went well. I was able to get the new vault loaded and get back, but in the rush, I failed to grab a sledgehammer to pound in the tent stakes, so I had to skip the tent setup. But I hustled and was able to get the vault set up complete, and the greens out and swept off as the funeral procession arrived. I let Lydia, an intern, take her first shot at giving pallbearers instructions on how to place the casket, and the interment went picture perfect. That was until it was time to go back to work. Lydia had removed the roses from on top the casket as I began to lower it, when a lady appeared out of nowhere and demanded the casket be opened to prove her niece was in the casket. Family members were shocked and embarrassed by the family member's behavior, but she refused to let it go, insulting staff, making insinuations that her body wasn't in the casket, that they sell the bodies to collectors and take the caskets back to resell. Michael, in an attempt to de-escalate the situation, offered for anyone who wishes to view the body to remain, and everyone else could proceed to the luncheon. About 40 of the 50 or so people left, and a few stayed behind. Not because they wanted to witness the casket being opened, but for concern of their relatives' behavior. I hadn't been at the funeral, so I was shocked when the casket lid opened. Resting peacefully, motionless, was a little girl about the same age and almost a spitting image of Madison. I wasn't sure what all transpired after that because I was focused on the little girl until I was snapped back to reality by the sound of the lady smacking the casket with her shoe. Family members were able to get her away, but Laya and I just stood with our jaws dropped. Lydia took out her phone and documented right before I sealed the vault. Out of nowhere we heard screaming. She was back. She was demanding that I open the vault to prove that her niece and the casket was in it. As Lydia attempted to explain it was sealed, I continued to lower the vault and pack up my equipment. This didn't sit well with the lady as she turned her attention and insults to me. She proceeded to get in my face and tell me that I was the skid mark of society for preying on and stealing money from grieving families. I was able to ignore her until she made a comment that cut deep. She screamed, "I can't wait until the shoe is on the other foot and one of your babies is inside one of those boxes." It was too much. I had to walk away. I just sat in my pickup with my head rested on the steering wheel. The image of that girl that could have just as easily been Madison was branded in my brain, as the lady's words just played again, over and over like it was stuck on repeat. I just couldn't shake it, that is, until I was jolted back to reality by the sound of someone pounding on my women and screaming. As I explained to Madison, this wasn't my proudest moment as a human, but she had gone too far. I jumped out of my truck and proceeded to lose my shit on this woman. She was clueless that I went above and beyond driving 5 hours round trip to replace the damaged burial vault. That wasn't my fault. She started to lose some of her feist after I told her I don't get paid for those 5 hours and her, nor her family, fill my gas tank. Just as she was ready to cut me off and continue her insults, we seen flashing lights approaching from the distance. I was completely unaware the sexton was over her behavior a long time ago and called law enforcement. Apparently seeing the lights, she figured that was her cue to leave. She proceeded to flip us the bird, shouted a final insult as she got into her car and took off. I was over it all, I told the deputy. I just wanted to pack me shit and leave. I had another service to attend to. My brain could focus on nothing but the events that transpired. I think Madison understood the impact when I told her I hadn't even noticed on the entire 2-hour drive to my next setup that the volume on the radio was turned all the way down. As I completed the final setup, no one even noticed that I wasn't my normal chipper, talkative self. Matter of fact, the old words I spoke at all to anyone was the pallbearer instructions. When I got back to town, my greens needed a good washing, so I used the pressure washer to give them a good blast. The loud hum of the pressure washer was the other thing that kept me focused on my task. Madison looked confused when told her I didn't even realize after I sat down in my chair that over 3 hours had passed. Her call asking me to bring home some of the microwave popcorn for the shop was what snapped me back to reality. Once I got home, I put on my best everything is fine face, gave the kids hugs and kisses before bed, and made the excuse I needed to clean out my truck to go out to the garage and just sit. I waited for the flickers of the TV to disappear, a signal that everyone was in bed or had departed to their rooms, then made my way back into the house. Just as I was ready to finish explaining the events that unfolded, I felt Madison suddenly stop. As I continued to ramble that I sat down on the sofa and time just disappeared, the next thing I remember is feeling her cuddle up next to me. Madison points to a grave. She lets go of my hand, and we both stand staring silently. It was the grave of the first person I laid to rest, a 2-year-old little boy who accidentally drowned in the bathtub while his mother was distracted. Madison proceeded to drop to her knees and began to clean up all the grass and dead leaves off the base of the boy's grave. I just stood and watched my daughter with admiration. Once she was done, she said, "Let's go home and bake some cookies." We began the walk back to the pickup chatting about making cookies when she unexpectedly reached out and took my hand again. This was the first time since her kindergarten graduation that she reached out to hold my hand, unless it was for a specific reason like helping her up or helping her in and out of the bathtub. Madison had worked her magic. I no longer had the image of that little girl in the casket in my head. I no longer had that awful words of that lady playing in my head, on repeat. I had a new memory, the memory of the time Madison reached out and took my hand as we walked into the sunrise towards the pickup.